guys, hi, how's it going? How you doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today we're doing the next palette review in my palette roulette series, in which I utilize a palette that is in my collection that might also be in your collection. I use it for a week and I come back to you. I talk to you about my experiences with the palette and I show you some looks that I was able to create with the palette. We do live swatches of the palette and then we pull another palette. Some might say this is the death of a YouTuber. Exploring or reviewing. I saw that in a video not that long ago, actually, one that went up live last week saying, you know, reviewing an old palette was the death of a YouTuber. But, you know, I've been doing this now for 2 years. I really enjoy it. I think that you guys enjoy it too. And I hope that this comes back because I'm telling you what, I'd rather be getting some use out of the stuff in my collection than spending a whole bunch of money to get all new things every single time something dropped. So there's that. If this is death of a YouTuber, thank you so much for joining me today. For those of you who are new, my name is Donna. I'm a lover of all things high-end, colorful beauty and self-care. I also work in the beauty industry as a district leader for Ulta, so I get a lot of education in my position, and I like to bring you that education here on my channel. But I also just really like to talk about makeup, so you're going to find videos here that are a little bit more lengthy because we really do like to chat about makeup. So I hope that sounds like something you're interested in. If it does, I hope that you'll want to subscribe before you go. I would love to welcome you into my fam here personally, so please let me know you're a new subscriber in the comments section so I can do so. And with that said, let's roll into this palette review. So today, I'm not even sure if my audio is working, and you might have noticed that I missed this video last week, and I will tell you why. Not last week, but the week before, we had some visitors, and I didn't wear makeup at all that week. I think I wore it one time that week, and it was legitimately just mascara and an eyeliner. My studio becomes the guest room of sorts when we have guests that are staying over. So I didn't have a chance to compile some looks. I didn't even wear any of these palettes, so I didn't do a palette roulette last week. I honestly didn't upload anything last week. I just needed to take a moment and spend some time with my family. There's a lot going on in my life and I just wanted some family time. So I hope that you guys are super excited to have this series back this week. But the 3 palettes that we'll be going over today are these, actually. They're just 5-pan NATASHA DENONA palettes. One is a mini. It is the mini Xenon palette. And then these 2 are actually not for sale on her website. We have the Ayana and the Peak palette. And these 2 came to me via my mom. She gets BoxyCharm occasionally, or, you know, just intermittently, and when she gets something in those boxes that she doesn't want, she brings them to me, and I was lucky enough to get these in my collection via that source. So these are the palettes that we're going to be talking about today, and I hope that sounds like something that you're interested in. Typically when we have 3 different palettes or 2 different palettes that we're talking about, I will go through each one of them one at a time. I am going to talk about these in a nutshell, but these basically in one segment, and then this one in another, and then I'll swatch them all together. What I will say is both of these are NATASHA DENONA 5-pan palettes. They are the full-size pans, so they are 0.08 ounces of product a piece, and they do have the little hole in the back that you can pop the shadows out and rearrange them into whatever palettes that you like. I do like these full-size, you know, 5-pan palettes because no matter what I want to do, I have a ton of NATASHA DENONA in my collection, most of them full size. I can take any of those full size palettes and make little 5-pan palettes for myself, utilizing these guys as like the travel source or the magnetic palette of sorts. I don't have to have a separate magnetic palette to do that, and I can create really customized 5-pan palettes utilizing these. However, I don't typically dabble outside of the palettes that are already made, so it seems ridiculous for me to even boast that as something that is, you know, a perk. But I have to say, like, I don't have any other new NATASHA DENONA palettes to review in my collection yet. But these would maybe spark more life into my Natasha Denona collection, because I know that if I pull for the green brown or the purple blue, like I know what color stories I'm getting, but I can just pop a couple pans into these and make them a whole new palette, and that excites me, honestly. I don't know if these were for sale on her website ever. I do know that this one specifically was made for a BoxyCharm box, and I know that this one came in a BoxyCharm box also, but the description on BoxyCharm said that this one was made specifically for them, and this one, it didn't have the same verbiage, so it kind of confused me a little bit, but to my knowledge, these were never for sale on her personal website. I do know that you can pick them up on Mercari or on BoxyCharm Pop-Up. I think both of them are for sale on BoxyCharm Pop-Up. Her 5-pan full-size eyeshadow palettes are typically $48. I do believe that that is the only place that you can pick these up from an authorized dealer. Otherwise, you have to go to Mercari or Poshmark or whatnot. The 5 shadows in each one of these palettes are shadows from other palettes. So you're not going to get anything if you have a large Natasha Denona, collection like I do. These are not, for the most part, going to have new shades to your collection unless there's a palette or two that you're missing. I personally am missing Safari, which I have thought about purchasing from Mercari or Poshmark, but they are charging an arm and a leg for it, which I get, I understand, but I'm not paying $180 for one of those palettes. There's just that. Oh, I'm missing also Tropic, but that's not represented in these 2 palettes. So this one has shades from Biba, Safari, and Sunrise in it. And this one has shades from Glam, Green Brown, and Mini Glam in it. You're not gonna see new shades if you have those 2 palettes. To be honest, I have all the shades in here except for the 2 in this palette, or the 3 in this palette that come from Safari. But I can tell you the 3 in this palette that come from Safari, I'm quite certain I can find dupes for everywhere else in my palette collection, up to and including some of my Natasha Denona shadows that will be very, very similar to these. Each one of these, as I said, has 5 shadows in it at 0.08 ounces per. This one is a warm tone eyeshadow palette with, your oranges and your kind of like peachy colors. This one is your cool tone option that has a little bit more of those grungy colors, maybe even a mustard shade in here, and then this shimmer that actually kind of is quasi green toned. This one ranks in at 4.5 stars on the BoxyCharm website, and this comes in at 4.9 stars on the BoxyCharm website, and each one has a 24-month shelf life. I love the packaging of these because of the aforementioned moving around of the full-size eyeshadow pans to create new 5-pan eyeshadows that are 5-pan eyeshadow palettes that will maybe spark more interest in your collection if you need to. What I also thought I would point out is some of these, like, okay, so in this one, the 2 shades from Glam are Lash Line and Crease, which are these 2 here. These are full size, 0.08 ounces per pan. And the Glam eyeshadow palette is a midi, which means those are 0.04 ounces per pan. So you're getting much larger shades in here than what is even in the eyeshadow palette that they exist in. Also in this one is Harlow, which is this one here that only appears in the Mini Glam that I could find. I did go on a hunt to try and find it, and that's the only one that I could see that it was in. The interesting thing is this appeared a lot more cream than it does in this eyeshadow palette. It looks very almost mustard in this eyeshadow palette, and in that one it looks very cream. Now I don't have the Mini Glam, so I don't have this shade otherwise in my collection, and I don't have Safari, and there are 3 shades in this one that are from Safari. So Aya, which is this one here, Thorn, which is this one here, and Amhara, which is this one here, are from the Safari palette. So those 4 shades, if I did not have these 2 5-pan palettes, would not exist in my collection from Natasha Denona. Within these 5-pan palettes, you're getting a little bit of everything as it pertains to the Natasha Denona line In the Iona palette, you're getting one of her cream to powder formulas, which is this one here, Harlow. You're getting 2 creamy mattes, which are the 2 from Glam. This one is in the green brown palette, and it is called Satin Skin in this palette, and it is called Skin in this palette, but it is a satin. It's this one here. So it is 75S also in this palette, and in this one it has been renamed 75P. Every single one of NATASHA Denona's shadows are numbered and named. So if you remember back to my review of this palette, I went over the fact that S in NATASHA Denona's world, when the green brown and the purple blue came out, it was a pearlized finish, more of a satin pearl, and then it was changed to a P in later years. This is 75P. The one in here is 75S. It's the same shadow, same name, different letter after the number, because that's just how she rolls. Every single shadow in her collection has a number. So with that said, also, when you look at the back of a palette and you see like 10P or 10cm, you know that that came out of a palette way, way back in the day, right? That is how I was able to go through and find the palettes that these shades all came out of, and how I was to know that there was only one in this palette that comes from a different palette. Just some NATASHA Denona trivia for you there. So again, these are both full-size eyeshadow pans from NATASHA Denona. All of the shadows that appear in these 2 palettes appear in other palettes. Biba, Safari, Sunrise, Glam, Green Brown, and Mini Glam are the 6 palettes that these 2 palettes share shades with. From all intents and purposes, everything that I can gather, these were exclusive to BoxyCharm, and if you were not subscribed to BoxyCharm, you could not get these. So I am super happy that I do have my hands on these. These were really super easy to work with. I loved having both of them in my collection, and I are having both of them to work with this week. And what I will say is that I'm really actually happy to have some, you know, full-size pan options from some of the loved shadows in my midi size palettes, so that I just have more of that shadow. Each one of these palettes really created its own eye look, but it was also fun to mix and match between these 2 and this one, because there was such a wide variety of colors that I could choose from. In addition to these 3 palettes, I also utilized some of my Cleona shadows that you'll see in the pictures that I should have been filtering through this video for you. Unfortunately, I couldn't find them anywhere else, so the only star rating I have for you is the one that was on BoxyCharm, and like I said, this one, the warm colored one, showed up at a 4.9 stars, and that doesn't surprise me. Warm tones are a lot of people's jam and a lot of people's favorites, and a lot of people struggle with cool tones, but this one even came in at 4.5 stars. I love having all these shadows to have gotten to play with last week, well, 2 weeks actually, and this color is part of what's in my eye look today. It's on the like outer portion of like this silver like halo eye thing going on. That is the only color out of those 2. I utilized those 2 shadow palettes more than I did the Xenon one. So today I just wanted to really stay super close to Xenon and do something on my eye look with Xenon. What I will say is the mini Xenon is for sale on the NATASHA Denona website, and is $27 for 5 pans of shadow. Her minis are much smaller than these guys, and they are also smaller than the midi size shadow pens. So these ones are not interchangeable. You cannot pop the pans out of these palettes and exchange them in between the other mini size eyeshadow palettes. These are 0.02 ounces a piece, so a quarter of the size of this, and they are half the size of her midi eyeshadow pans. This one does have 4 shadows in it that, as far as I can tell, do not exist anywhere else in an eyeshadow palette. Chromatic shade right here appears in the purple blue. So really happy to have a single of it. It is a truly beautiful silver shade. The rest of these, like, okay, so this is her Blackest Black. Blackest Black is the reason why I picked up this palette. So Blackest Black is only available in Natasha Denona's collection as a single. And it's because Natasha truly feels that blacks are just a palette destroyer, right? You're going to pick it up into your brush. It's going to get the black powder all over the place in your palette, and it's going to ruin the feel and the color story of all the other shadows. So there is a palette in her collection that has like a quasi black, a decent black, more like a charcoal black, but never Blackest Black. So Blackest Black is the reason why I picked up this palette, but I really, really love the eye looks that I am able to get out of this palette. But I use that Blackest Black so many times in the journey over the last couple weeks. This has 4 mattes in it and 1 shimmer, the 1 shimmer being this silver one in the center that, like I said, is also in the purple blue palette. The other shadows in here besides, you know, Blackest Black, I think are only to this palette. I couldn't find them in any other palette. They're beautiful. You can see that my eye look kind of looks a little bit more like hazy slatey blue. And I think that the way these grays perform really lent to it being like just this easy cool tone gray eye look. I've tried to do this eye look with so many other palettes and it not just come out this beautiful. The black is on my outer corner and my inner corner, and the silver is in the center, and then I've got every single one of the colors of this palette on my eye today. And the one thing that I will say is these are the smoothest, most blendable grays I have ever had the opportunity to utilize. And this white might replace the white that is in the ABH Alyssa Edwards or maybe even Riviera palette that I have. I think I remember saying that this is the best white I have in my collection in one of those, and maybe it is a little bit more stark than this one is. This one does lean a little bit more like creamy than it does white, but man, it is just so pretty. It's on my inner corner, it's in my brow bone. It's such a beautiful white. I used it almost every single day in the eye looks that I was creating with these 3 palettes in my brow bone and my inner corner. The black I also used almost every single day. Today was one of 2 days that I utilized these 3 shades in here, and only the first day that I utilized this silver. This silver reminds me of Cyborg from the ABH Sultry palette, but in a less dense way. And what that means for me is that I can put it on as a topper, but I can also put it on as an all over the lid shade like I did here today. And it's not going to create texture if I do place it all over my lid. The other thing that I love about Natasha Denona shadows, I've said it 100,000 times and I will repeat myself 100,000 more times if you need it. These shadows last forever and they perform whether there is a primer on your eye or no. I had 0 problems blending any of these. Her creamy matte formula is one of Natasha Denona has my favorite formula for eyeshadows, period, hands down. That will likely not change just because I've already dabbled in so many other different brands of eyeshadows. Wayne Goss plays a very close second as far as the mattes go because they just blend seamlessly and it was like magic. You don't really have to do anything to them. But as far as shimmers go, Natasha Denona hands down. I don't see this kind of blendability and this kind of pigmentation in many of my eyeshadow palettes that are, you know, luxury and or high-end brands to begin with. So Natasha Denona is my favorite, and maybe that makes me biased, but I had so many great eye looks come from these, including this black one, which, to be honest, terrified me just a little bit. So super happy to have these in my collection. We'll be keeping these in my collection, even though I have all these shadows in other palettes. There are still 4 in these pans that 4 of the 10 that I don't have. 40% is not good, you might say, but some of these I have in the midi size. I mean, I can't get them in a full-size shadow pan, so like when I really look at it, I'm looking at, you know, a good 8 of the 10 shadows in here that I don't already have existing in my collection, because these are full-size pans that I can mix and match into other palettes and, you know, create new sparks in my life as far as NATASHA DENONA goes. And the other 2 are just, you know, whatever. NATASHA DENONA, hands down for me, has a really lengthy amount of wear time for them. I didn't have a problem keeping them on my face for a good 10 plus hours. I remember putting my makeup on to go visit my family last weekend as we ventured out. And what would have been a 6-hour drive for us became a 10-hour drive for us. And I had put makeup on my face that morning, and then we drove 10 hours it took us, and I still had the same eye look on my eyes when I got to my mom and dad's, and it was in pristine condition. So I know that these shadows last at least 10 hours, if not more. They perform whether you've got a primer on your eye or not. The blendability is super smooth, including the creamed powder formula, which isn't normal for a lot of other brands. And they're just all around great eyeshadows. I didn't have any kind of staining or any kind of irritation with any of these shadows, and with a lot of black eyeshadows I do see a lot of irritation in my eye looks. They are a wee bit like powdery in the pan, but that really doesn't translate onto your eyes unless you're not doing a little bit at a time. NATASHA DENONA shadows are a little dabble do you kind of mindset. I also will take the brush and kind of pat it versus sweeping it until I've got the structure for the eye look that I'm going after, and then blend it out with the lighter shade over the top of it. So working darkest to lightest instead of, you know, lightest to darkest. I realized when I was filming or editing that I didn't have my swatching footage. So this is what the palettes look like, and these are the swatches. So I'm going to go through those with you guys real quick. So the first palette we have here is this one. This is the Peak palette, and this is what the back of the Peak palette looks like. So we have Aya, Jasper, Thorn, Amhara, and Shine. And they are these shadows here. Aya, Jasper, Thorn, Amhara, and Shine. You can see we have kind of a beige, a like rusty terracotta orange, a nice warm tone, deep brown, kind of a dusty orange pinky color, and then a really nice copper gold. And then the second set is this palette here, which is the Ayana palette. And in the Ayana palette, we have Harlow, Lash Line, Satin Skin, Crease, and Glam Green. So we have Harlow, Lash Line, Satin Skin, Crease, and Glam Green. Now that crease shade, I really do firmly believe that is too deep to be a crease shade for somebody of my skin tone, but it might work well for yours. This is also kind of a different light that you're seeing these in versus what you saw them in my video. This is a really deep shade, but it's not quite black. You guys can see that. And then we have these ones here, which that black did not swatch super great, but this is the Xenon palette. This is what it looks like. And those are the shades on this one. So we have Black is Black, Gloom, Chromatic, Mist and Puff, Blackest Black, Gloom, Chromatic, Mist, and Puff. You guys can see that silver shade is just stunning. And that white does lean a little bit beige, but not quite as beige as that one up there. So those are the 15 shades that I was utilizing over the last couple weeks. With that said, I will be keeping these in my collection. Let me know if there's anything else that you want to know about these eyeshadows. We're almost done with eyeshadow palettes to review, if I'm honest. If we keep moving through these 2 at a time, 3 at a time, we're probably going to be done with this series at the end of the year. And then we can just think of something new to do come next year. I really want to hone in on focusing on the new palettes that I bring into my collection from this perspective versus, you know, looking at the old palettes that I'm bringing in. But I also really just want to start a 5 looks 1 palette series where it's more about me doing an eye look with you, which I know I've promised year after year. But if I'm not doing this, then it'll be easier to do that. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are down in the comments section. I'm going to go pick a new palette. I will be right back. All right, folks, I have picked actually a couple new palettes. Here we go again with more than one. But there are only 12 shades between the 2 palettes, so I think it'll be really easy to come back to you and look at in the future. This one is by Belle and Argent. This I got in a BoxyCharm, and it is the Plum Premonition palette. It does have 8 shadows in it, and this is what those 8 shadows look like. Kind of like a purpley feel to it, but I do love that there's like a cool tone like brown in here and kind of like this mustard yellow color. I thought was really cool. But I also was looking at the palette and I'm like, well, those don't really go with anything in this palette except for like some of the gold shimmers, and we all know how I feel about gold shimmers. So I thought to partner with it, I would bring in some like reds and like maybe some oranges. So we're going to partner these 2 palettes together. I think that we've got a good mix of warm and cool between the 2 palettes, and it will be the first time I'm trying either one of these formulas. I've never had a Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadow in my life, and I don't know much about Belle and Argent as a brand, period. So I did think that it would be a great partnership to have, and I love also that they're small. I do travel again this week, so bringing something small in my makeup menagerie of makeup that I'm bringing with me is going to be super important. Let me know if you guys have these 2 palettes from BoxyCharm. I would love to know your thoughts. Let me know also if you picked up the mini Xenon palette. I knew as soon as this came out, it was one I was going to have to pick up. P.S. What do we all think about the new one that's coming out? I know it was leaked not that long ago, the My Perfect palette or something like that, with the paint splotches on it. If I'm honest with you, like that color story looks very like reminiscent of glam and retro came together. And I'm here for it, but also the packaging on it. When I was a kid, I lived with my grandparents for a good majority of my childhood, and they let me do what I wanted to with my bedroom, and my bedroom walls were white with black and red paint splatters all over them. So the packaging of that, like I've heard everybody like hemming and hawing about this paint splatter thing going on this palette, but I will be picking up that palette. I will be picking up probably also the face palette. Y'all know. So just saying. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on these 3 palettes. Let me know if you have any questions, and if you've tried either one of these, please let me know your thoughts on these as well. I would love to hear from you. But with that, yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us today. I hope that you are all well, that you and yours are safe and healthy and getting along as best you can in this crazy ass world that we're living in right now. I hope that you are all loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, bye friends.